right, we're back with Michelle and myself, Victoria. This is Behind the Ranks. I have a special friend here in Las Vegas. She's here in studio with us. Her name is Jessica.
Hello.
Hey. It's so cool. I met you actually through another military spouse. We got connected through another spouse. She was like, "Hey, I have this friend moving there to Las Vegas. Would love to connect you with her." And I was like, "Yeah, hook it up." We've actually just been kind of like Facebook friends for a while, and I've been watching you. I've been watching you on
She's
Facebook.
eyes on you.
Yeah, I
Nothing
love
creepy.
I know, right? It's like in the best way. I've been stalking you, and yeah, I love all your posts. They're so funny or encouraging and things like that. And I was like, I just feel like I know you, even though this is like the first time we've been in person together, which this is so much fun. And I will say that I've just been watching your journey because you enjoy going to the gym and doing a special thing like lifting, which I was like, wow, she seems like a really teeny tiny girl and she's like lifting. And I'm just like, that's amazing. Among other things, you know, on your Facebook page, you've talked about like challenges of, being injured or, having your spouse deployed a lot or, I just love your approach on even the challenges you face when you're trying to do lifting in the gym and stuff. And anyways, I'm just excited to share your story with the friends and anybody listening to the podcast. I just feel like, you're doing something super unique and special. And, if anybody else feels like they wanted to try something new, I think you offer a pretty cool, unique perspective. And it's just fun.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of that. That's
Absolutely.
very kind of you to say. And thank you for inviting me here and having me here. It's super exciting.
Right. I know. It's like crazy. Like, we're actually doing this. It's like, I know. Well, why don't you just like introduce yourself, maybe like your background of like your military background, because you haven't just been a military spouse that we've learned recently. So you're prior military, but then became a spouse. I just love that. And why don't you just tell it? Because I don't want to tell it.
So I joined the military when I was 19. I had come straight out of high school, went to college, was in college for about a year and a half and realized like, this is not my jam. I am not good at this. So I joined the military and met my husband when we were at tech school. We were going to tech school for the same thing. And we were a tech school marriage, which I'm sure a lot of people know what that is. But for y'all that do not know what that is, that means that we met in tech school, which is a very short amount of time to be together. We were together for 2 weeks before we got married.
Wow.
Yes. Our family, bless their hearts, were very encouraging, which is crazy.
That's awesome that they were so encouraging.
I know.
Yes. I think it was one of those instances where they knew, okay, if we butt heads with them on this, then we're just going to drive them away and they're going to do it anyway. So we just got to roll with it. So we got married after 2 weeks and then we got stationed at Shaw and we were there for 4 years total. I was active duty for 2 years when I got pregnant with our first child. And at that point we realized like, we know deployment is going to happen, and we didn't want to put ourselves in a position where we could, heaven forbid, both be deployed at the same time, or one of us be deployed, come home, the other deploy.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't the lifestyle that we wanted to live. So I decided to get out and stay at home with our baby.
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't know how mil-to-mil spouses do it.
Oh, man.
I really don't. I really don't.
I remember a time as a military, as a child, both my mom and dad deployed at the same time, and we had to stay with like friends in England. Like, it was crazy. And I don't remember how long, but I'm sure we got on their nerves and made them not want to have kids. They didn't have kids at the time, and I think maybe after having us, they were like, "Oh, we should maybe hold off on having kids."
Well, my hats off to those who do it and successfully do it. And kudos to you for recognizing that wasn't, the right thing for your guys' family, because that would be a tough decision to do for sure.
Yeah.
Either way, tough decision to say, yep, I'm done, or tough decision to say, no, we're going to take on this challenge and kill it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So question, becoming a military spouse, like, and I remember a previous conversation we had, you were kind of like, I don't know. I mean, what were your like vision of like other military spouses and, was it like a negative kind of thing or was it like a positive thing to like join that like different side of the military?
So being active duty military, and I was so young, a lot of our peers weren't married at the time. So a lot of the people that we hung out with that were also active duty weren't married. So when I decided to get out, I honestly didn't have an opinion either way about military spouses. And it wasn't until like I got out that I realized people in the military treated me very differently.
And especially being young.
Yeah. And it was
as a kid.
It was hard going from a place where you felt like you got instant respect because you're in the military, which is great. They deserve respect 100%. Yeah. But going from that to now, quote unquote, just a military spouse, it was hard for me mentally because I was not jealous of the respect that my husband was getting, but it was hard to not feel like I was being disrespected in a way.
You're like, don't you remember? Or I like, you should have, I'm like, I used to wear that same uniform. Like, you know.
I feel like military spouses, unfortunately, get this connotation that they are mooching off of their active duty spouse for whatever reason, whether it be a paycheck, whether it be healthcare, you know, it just, there's this negative connotation with being a military spouse that you don't really do much. And so it went from this level of respect of, you know, you're in the military and you're a young female, this is powerful, that's awesome, to, oh, your husband's military. Yeah. Cool. And it's like, no, that is not my story. And that is not a lot of other military spouses' stories either. Exactly. You know, there's so many people who didn't sign up for that kind of life. And, you know, we are people in our own right and we have feelings. And I noticed when I initially got out, they got hurt a lot. So I had to get a thick skin real quick.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. I know. I remember in Georgia, when we first moved to Georgia, mind you, like I already graduated college and everything, and I met my husband, and we had a baby, but like I think I still looked kind of young because like when I went to Georgia and I went into the Airmen and Family Readiness Center there, I really got this feeling that they were like talking down to me, like you're just a young military spouse with a baby, like we see you all the time, and we can just assume that you, one, don't really know much, and two, you know, or like, I don't know, I just felt like talked down to because I was just a military spouse and a young mom, you know, that's how they viewed me. And I had to be like, had to kind of like, you know, hold on now, you know.
Right. And it's sad because I don't think it's something that they do on purpose. Right. I don't think that they realize that it's happening. And, you know, unfortunately you have those crazy stories where a military spouse takes it way far left and, you know, they're like, do you know my husband is a staff sergeant? Do you know who he is? And then once again, military spouses get a bad rep. And it's like, but no, it's because we're not being heard, you know, and unfortunately that happens often. And it's hard to know what to do at that point when you feel like you're just being spoken down to or you're just a spouse. And it's like, no, but I am me.
Yeah. I love that you say that because that's why we're doing what we're doing here, you know, why we're trying to create the Facebook page and hopefully more than that. But just to give spouses more of a voice and a platform, and not because we're doing anything better than our active duty spouses might be doing, but just because, you know, we have a voice too. We have stories, we have goals, we have dreams, you know, there are things that spouses across the world, you know, because we're stationed everywhere, are just rocking at, you know, and we need to celebrate that, and we need to share that and get other people connected and inspired. So it's awesome that you brought that point up because that's why we're here.
We are absolutely more than just our active duty member, right? Like we're not just an extension of that person. We can actually, you know, we are more than just that, you know, so it's good to recognize that. And anyway, so like let's fast forward a little bit, right? So you have your kids, you have two, yes. 2 kids, and then you're a stay-home mom.
Yes.
And your husband's deploying a lot.
Yes. Thankfully, not since we moved here. This is a special duty tour, so he is non-deployable, fingers crossed, for 4 years.
I love that word.
Especially during like COVID and stuff like that. Like the ones like going through deployment with all this like pandemic stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel so bad for you. Oh gosh. Oh, it's awful. Well, anyway, so good thing you don't have to deal with that at the moment. Knock on wood. So let's talk about what that was like, being a stay-at-home mom with your 2 kids, young kids.
Mm-hmm.
He's deploying a lot. Did you feel like you sort of lost yourself a bit? Was it how, and then you weren't around family, I'm assuming,
Yes and no. So coming out of Shaw, my husband got a year remote to Honduras. And so my in-laws were extremely gracious and invited me and my children to move in with them, and they live in Illinois. And so we lived with them for a year because we were trying to sell our home in Shaw. And at the time, I had a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. And I was like, I am not going to keep this house show ready. That is not realistic for me. Oh, so we packed everything up, put it in storage, and then I moved in with my in-laws while he was gone for the year. And that in and of itself was hard and a blessing at the same time, because you have 2 matriarchs of 2 separate families who run their households 2 separate ways, and neither of us trying to step on toes and trying to feel each other out. So that in and of itself had, a lot of obstacles that we had to overcome, but it was a blessing for sure. And so me and the kids were there for a year, and I definitely felt like that was where I had a crisis within of identity. Who am I? Because now I went from a active duty station to the middle of nowhere, Illinois, where no one else is military. Nobody understands that lifestyle. And everyone knows why I am there, because it's a very small town. And so it's kind of like I walked around for a year with this stigma of, oh, that's Jessica. Her husband's gone, and I'm like,
don't talk about it.
Okay, that's cool, but can you grab that diaper bag?
She needs all the coffee, all the wine.
Can you just help me get from my car to the store? That'd be great. And then you can ask me whatever questions you have.
Oh, that's nice.
So after that, we moved to Ohio. We were in Ohio for 4 years, and so my husband came home. And he was home for 1 year to the day, and then deployed to Africa, and was gone to Africa for 8 months. And then he came home and was home for 4 months, and then left to deploy to Kuwait, and was in Kuwait for 7 months. And so when my husband left for Honduras, my youngest child was 6 months old. Yeah. And then by the time he got home, obviously he was a year and a half. And then he deployed again, came home, deployed again. And so by the time my son was 3, he had spent more time away from his dad than he had with his dad, which is so funny to me because he is a carbon copy of his father. And I'm like, how did this happen?
It's like the same thing with my daughter. Very similar. Like, he went to Korea for a year, and then it was back to back to back deployments, all within like those first 3 to 4 years of my daughter's life. But she is so much like him. So I'm like, Hayden wasn't even here. How are you like him?
That gene runs deep. It is embedded in there.
That's so funny.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
It's so fun. But it's awesome to see, why we have, you here today is to tell, your story of how you might have lost yourself from the transition of active duty spouse to military spouse, and now, losing yourself through those times, but rediscovering all of it. It's just so inspiring to see what you have been able to transition from and the obstacles and everything, but to come out and share what you're going to still share with us.
Well, thank you. I really hope that it encourages other spouses, even if it's not, lifting and going to the gym, just to find their thing outside of being a mother and outside of being a spouse, because those are 2 very important roles that we play. But it's so easy to just have mental breakdowns when those become your identity.
So you mentioned the crisis moment. So can you tell us a little bit more about that moment and what it was that kind of just flipped the switch for you?
So the year in Illinois was really hard mentally because, again,
you're like an outsider.
Right. And my in-laws, I cannot praise them enough for how they took care of us and took us in, and what a blessing they were to us. But it was extremely hard going from running your own home to now being a visitor for a year, while also having to be a parent to your children. And now the grandparents are also there who feel like they almost have to parent as well. I can't just be grandma and grandpa. And that was sad to watch as well. Yeah. And so the whole year in Illinois, mentally, it was very hard for me because I just really lost my sense of purpose. Like, who am I? What am I doing with my life? You know, I joined the military with full intentions of being a lifer and loved the career field that I was in and thought that's who I was, to now I have no real military affiliation because my husband's gone and I'm in a non-military town, you know? And so I really think that's when I was able to identify the problem within myself, which was losing who I was. And so when my husband came back from Honduras, you know, when they deploy or they're on remotes, they go to the gym often as a mental escape, and because there's just not really a whole lot to do. And I had gained a ton of weight with my pregnancies. Pregnancy was hard on my body, and I was not one of those who bounced back quickly or easily. And when my husband came home from Honduras, he was in the best shape of his life. And I was like, you betrayed me. We gained all this pregnancy weight together. And now you're here and you just look so good. And this is not fair.
Eat this cake.
Yes. Take me to dinner and then let's get dessert. So when he came home, he very sweetly, which I know not all husbands do, but he very sweetly asked me if it was okay if we budgeted in a gym membership and if he started to go to the gym. And immediately I knew, okay, if he goes to work and then he goes to the gym and I'm home with both kids all day long, I am going to be so mad. Mm-hmm. I am going to get so angry. And it may not start out that way, but I know it's going to get old because I know myself, and there's just going to be animosity that builds up, and I don't want that. Yeah. So I was like, fine, I'll just be proactive for my marriage and I'll go with you. And he was like, really? I was like, yes. But no part of me wanted to go to the gym, even though I knew I had to lose the weight. I just did not have that motivation because I was so tired. Oh, yeah. You know, being a mom of young kids, like, you are just so drained, and nothing about you at 4 p.m. wants to put on workout clothes and go to the gym. But I was like, I'm going to do it because it's for my marriage. So I'm going to do this. Yeah. So we started going to the gym.
You're not going to get to go without the kids or, you know, enjoy this time. Also, I don't know. That would have been my kind of thing. And we're like, like, I'm sorry, but like, you don't get to be away that long. Okay.
Right. Like, I feel a little convicted though. You said put on workout clothes. I'm thinking, I don't really put on real clothes. So I'm already in the workout clothes. Right. They're like fashionable. But good for you for having to make that decision to change.
To be clear, I was in pajamas 90% of the time.
I can relate to that then.
And I wear workout clothes like pajamas. So there you go.
Victoria's always ready for the gym then.
I'm like, people are like, oh, you work out? No, I put on these workout clothes though because I want something comfy and it looks like I'm productive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I read a thing once and it was like parenting is similar to a workout. That's why we're always dressed in workout clothes, like activewear all the way.
Oh, that's
what motherhood is. Motherhood is a workout. So just
I guess I'll tell people
dress for the job.
I haven't worked out all day. Actually, I've been working out since 6 a.m.
You're wrestling snakes. So
yes. Yeah. Oh, so anyway.
So we start going to the gym and I start losing weight, just following like plans on my phone and the free apps and all that because I had no idea what I was doing. And thankfully, our gym had a women's only little area. Yeah. And so I felt real safe there because I was like, ooh, yes, these are my people. I can do this. Yeah. So lost a lot of weight and was so happy with how I felt. And then the mom guilt starts coming in, right? Because, again, thankfully, our gym had a daycare. And so my children were going to the daycare so I could go work out. And I just started feeling so guilty about that. And I had to readjust my perspective, which I feel like is a big thing it being a mom and a military spouse. It's just readjusting that perspective. So I had to rein in those negative thoughts and just remind myself, you know what, like 3 months ago, getting down on the floor with them, my back would ache and I would get winded trying to wrestle these snakes, and I would go to bed feeling exhausted. And now, 3 months into it, I have way more energy. My body feels better. When I am out with the kids, I'm not constantly thinking, does this shirt make me look fat? Are they looking at my rolls? Which is, selfish internal dialogue, which I didn't even realize was happening, but I was thinking very self-centeredly. Whereas now my thoughts aren't in that direction. My thoughts are, hey, Kennedy wants to be pushed on the swing. Granger wants to go down the slide. Let's go do these things. Not, I don't know if my hips are going to fit on that slide, And so it just being able to readjust that perspective and remember why I was doing it was what allowed me to continue doing it and fight that mom guilt. And I think knowing your why, having a strong why is so important, because in those moments where you just want to quit because the mom guilt sinks in or you're just exhausted, if you have a strong why, it's going to allow you to keep moving forward, even if it's just little by little. It's just going to keep remotivating that match and just allowing you to push forward.
Yeah.
So
what did you identify was maybe like your stronger why? So now it wasn't just like, well, my husband's going to the gym, so I'm going to go with you.
Right.
It was now something that had to be a little bit stronger than that.
Yes. So my strong why was definitely my health. Like I said, pregnancy was really hard on my body, and I had so much back pain and was in and out of the doctor with back pain. They diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, which at 22, being diagnosed with fibromyalgia was kind of a big deal, because I felt like it was a bit of a cop-out, like y'all aren't digging enough to figure out what's wrong, and fibromyalgia is kind of a blanket diagnosis. Yeah. Not to say it's not a real diagnosis, but I just knew that the medications they were giving me was making me tired and was making me irritable. And so this isn't working. This isn't working for me and my lifestyle. And so when I started going to the gym and I was able to build up that core strength, I noticed a huge difference in my pain tolerance and just in my body's ability to rehabilitate itself. Yeah. And just seriously the difference of playing with my children after going to the gym versus what it was like a year prior when I wasn't going to the gym was a strong enough why for me to keep going and to be able to push out those negative thoughts of I'm not spending enough time with them, because it's like in reality, the time that I'm spending with them is way more valuable now, because I'm not constantly in pain and thinking about that pain. So that definitely became my strong why as to why I wanted to continue working out and going to the gym.
Nice. Well, then, so tell me how, like, lifting sort of, I like to say fell in your lap, because, but I mean, like, at some point, like, you got into lifting, and let's talk about that.
So, when my husband left for Africa, I had started online school to be a personal trainer, because I realized how much I had enjoyed working out, and I wanted to be able to help military spouses, really, because I knew so many military spouses that when I would ask them to go to the gym with me, always had excuses, and those excuses were valid. They were good excuses, but I wanted to be able to connect with them in a way that allowed them to get out of their heads and out of that mom guilt and know that, like, you are doing this for your family. This is not a selfish why. This is a good why. And I just wanted to be able to help them feel better, not only about how they look and view themselves, but also just their bodies, like their bodies just moving and feel better, because our bodies are made to move, right? Yeah. So when my husband left for Africa, I was doing online school, and I would do that when the kids went to bed, and I finished early, and so I started working as a personal trainer. And then he came back from Africa, and all this time, I start meeting people at the gym, right? You start seeing familiar faces. And so there was this guy named Mike who was quite younger than me, and we became friends. And when Steven came back, I introduced him to Steven and whatnot. So we all kind of would just like chit chat in the gym, and it was always nice conversations. And Mike was into powerlifting. And at the time, I mean, I was so tiny. I had lost so much weight. I was 105 pounds, wow. And I'm 5 foot nothing. So I'm a very short person, tiny person. And Mike was like, you should really get into powerlifting because, you know, I don't think you need to lose more weight. I think you're good in that aspect. I think you should probably gain some muscle. And I was just like, no, no. I can do these 10 pounds for 4 sets of 10. I'm not trying to do 30 pounds for 2 reps. That does nothing, you know. And when we found out that Steven was deploying again to Kuwait, Mike had stepped in again, and he's like, you know, you could just train while he's gone. It'll give you something to do. And Steven, my husband, was like, you should just try it. And I was like, fine. So, but in the back of my head, you know, there was an ulterior motive because I am a Christian and Mike was not. And we had many conversations about that in the gym. And oftentimes him trying to disprove my faith. Mm-hmm. And I think that led to good conversations because he wasn't used to having these conversations with Christians trying to disprove their faith and it not turning into an argument. Right. Yeah. And so the fact that I would allow him to say what he wanted to say and not so much listening to him to reply, but just listening to him to hear him really opened the door for those conversations to continue. And so in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I'll train with you and we'll talk about Jesus and I'll plant some seeds, you know? And God was like, that's great, Jessica, but I don't need you as a cheerleader. Like, I got this. So Mike and I start training, and Steven is now deployed to Kuwait, and there's this competition coming up. And so Mike was like, you know, you should really compete in this competition. And in this weight class, I think you would be like really competitive. And I was like, okay, fine. And so that became a goal for me, right? Was training to compete in this competition. And so the competition came and I competed and did not do so well. There's 9 lifts total in each competition. There's 3 deadlifts, 3 bench, 3 squat. And I went 4 for 9. So I completed 4 lifts and I failed 5 of them. I was like, man, my ego is hurt. Yeah. All this training, and I missed 5 lifts, but I still won first place.
Wow.
I was like, well, I can work with that. I can deal with that, right? And so then I just continued training, and my goal from competing then grew to, my goal is now I want to leave the state of Ohio with a state record. Like, that's my goal. So I realized that goals are great, but when you reach a goal, you have to redefine that goal. Mm-hmm. And you also have to be careful to define goals appropriately, because we have goals and we have dreams. And for me, a goal is something that I can see myself achieving, and it's going to cause me to work hard, but it is in my grasp. Whereas a dream is something that is over the top, may never happen, but I'm still going to get closer to that dream with each goal I achieve. So my goal had become a state record. So I start training for this next meet that was going to happen in May of 2019, and we were PCSing to Vegas in July of 2019. So I start training, and then in March of 2019, I went to the gym one day, had this terrible pain in my shoulder, like so much pain where when I went to squat with just the bar on my back, like it felt excruciating. Like I felt like my shoulder was swollen, like it wasn't wanting to move to externally rotate in a way that I could actually even position myself under the bar. Yeah. So immediately I was, well, great. There goes my goal, So I go to the doctor, and it turns out that I have a slap tear in my left shoulder, which is basically just a labrum tear in the socket of your shoulder. And normally it requires surgery. And so the doctor was really pushing for surgery. And I was like, well,
I've got records to break.
I have this competition coming up. Is there any way I could still compete? And the doctor just kind of rolled his eyes and he's like, well, to be honest, the only reason that I'm not sending you straight to surgery is because of the strength that is in your shoulder. So if you hadn't been working out up until this point and you had this tear, then you would have to go to surgery immediately. But the fact that you have the muscle surrounding it is the only thing really helping you right now. So just do what you can. And I was like, okay, all right, I got your approval. I'm going to do what I can. So go to physical therapy and everything, continue working out, doing what I can, even though it was like very painful and my numbers went down, way down. And so then again, reshifted my perspective. And I was like, you know what? Maybe my goal is no longer to break records. My goal is just to compete and just do what I can while I'm competing, even if it's terrible numbers. So I competed in May and was able to rehabilitate myself enough to where I was able to take state records. And I took a squat state record, I took a deadlift state record, and then I took a combined total state record. So I left Ohio with 3
That
when
is so awesome.
my goal was only 1.
That is so awesome.
So-
Can you tell us what those records are real quick? Because
Yeah. I know. Just
I
because.
can remember. It's so bad. There's so many numbers in my head. So the squat state record was 205 pounds. No, 209 pounds. And then the deadlift state record is 303 pounds. And I do not remember the total state record. I know my bench in that competition, I think I only benched 95 pounds. And then I went, maybe 100 pounds. And then I went for 110.
Oh my gosh.
Because 100 was real easy. And then on 110,
so easy. I'm basically lifting my body weight. Like, oh my gosh.
well, 110 was not moving. Like I barely got it off my chest and then it just went right back down. And I was like,
wow.
It's my shoulder, guys.
What a good excuse. Oh my gosh.
So it was above and beyond what I could have dreamed of, right? So I had not only achieved my goal, but I had surpassed it, which was
With an injury, by the way.
with an injury. So it was
crazy.
just such an amazing moment, and just once again reignited that match of, I can continue doing this. And even though obstacles come, I think we live in a society where we talk so much about doors, right? We talk about, well, if the door is open, go through it. And well, if God shuts that door, then it's not meant for you. And I think for me, I try to look at it more as like a staircase, right? Like sometimes it's going to be flat and it's going to be an easy walk. And then we're going to hit that stair and we're going to have to climb a little bit. And then it's going to be easy again. And then we're going to have to climb a little bit. And then sometimes you might run into a wall. And that might be where, you're saying, okay,
Where's my door?
this is not for me. But instead of just giving up completely, then just readjust your goals again, shift that focus and re-identify that goal. Because, it's like the old adage says, you can't hit a target what does it say? You can't hit a target if you don't see what you're aiming for. And so if you don't have that goal identified, then you're never going to reach anything. And that's not going to do anything for your self-esteem. It's not going to do anything for your self-worth.
Yeah.
And so just identifying those goals, whatever they may be, whether it be lose 5 pounds and your dream is to lose 30, and when those obstacles come, not to just give up, but to keep persevering through that adversity and reshifting your focus and thinking, okay, I've hit a wall. How am I going to readjust from this?
Yeah.
So,
So then as a military spouse, what advice would you give other military spouses then about even identifying something that works for them or, how to even approach trying different things maybe, because I imagine, like you were hesitant to try lifting. And I mean, like, how do you encourage somebody just, or is it because your husband was like so supportive and maybe other spouses need, that support somehow, but they need to like identify, who's going to be their cheerleader and whatnot. But what would you like maybe give it advice?
I think just being okay to fail. And I know that sounds like, it's the F word, but, again, our society has become one of participation trophies, which are great, and it makes life fair. But in reality, when you become an adult, there's going to be instances where you're not always going to get a trophy, and you have to be okay with that. And instead of looking at something that you've tried as a failure, looking at something that you've tried as, okay, I tried this, I gave it a fair shot, and this just was not my thing, and that's okay. So as military spouses, one thing that we go through is constantly having to, reinvent ourselves every time we move. And a lot of times that means with businesses as well. And so you meet military spouses who, like I myself I've sold Pampered Chef, I've sold Arbonne. I've been a preschool teacher. I've been a personal trainer. I am now currently an assistant to a director of operations for a personal styling company. Like, wow. All things that I would never have dreamed, like, that's what I want to be when I grow up,
exactly.
And when I tried these things, like Pampered Chef, tried it, realized real quick, I'm not a salesperson. Went to Arbonne, realized real quick, I'm not a salesperson.
It's not just cooking stuff,
It's not just because I don't like to cook that I can't sell the cooking utensils, but it's just because I'm not a salesperson, And so then you just have to keep trying and keep going. And I think having a supportive spouse who understands that, I have a career. This is my career, the military, and you support me in that. And I don't have to change that career with every move. And getting your spouse to understand that every PCS is you trying to redefine what you bring to your family. Even if it is you are just the stay-at-home mom, which I say just with an eye roll.
Right.
Because you are not just a stay-at-home mom. You are so much more. But if you want to do something outside of that, allowing yourself to try different things and quote unquote fail at them is okay. Yeah. Like you have to give yourself permission to fail, and it is okay. And then to realize, okay, I tried it. I gave it my all. That is not for me. I'm moving on. Because nobody says that you have to have a 20, 30-year career in anything just because it's the social norm. You can do this for 2 years and be great at it and love it, and then in 2 years from now be doing something totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I remember a previous conversation you had mentioned, like looking at, PCSing, as more of a blessing instead of like, like being just so,
less of a burden, more of a blessing.
Yes, thank you. I was like, what's the word I'm looking for? Because it's just like, everything sucks, You're like, I've got everything set up here, and then you're moving, you have to like reset everything, and you just said it really well, where you were like, look at it as a blessing, and I forgot how you mentioned that, but I do remember that bit,
Yeah, I think a lot of that just comes from growing up in a really small town and everybody knowing everybody since birth. And so who you were in high school kind of makes who you are outside of high school, because people already think that they know you. And so it's like your environment has restricted who you are, and you have a hard time breaking free from that. And I think as a military spouse, we have a blessing of being able to reinvent ourselves. So if we try something at one duty station, and at this duty station, I am doing this job and I don't love it, I'm okay at it, but I'm doing it. And now everyone at this duty station knows you as the girl who sells Pampered Chef. Yeah. That is who you are. And so it's hard for you to grow outside of that. It's hard for you to become the personal trainer, because now when you go to somebody like, hey, I just got my, certification. Would you like to train? They kind of give you the eye roll, like, oh, you're selling something else, And so it's hard to like have that growth. And so being a military spouse, I think if we change our perspective and realize that moving can be a blessing because it gives us that growth that society doesn't always allow for us to have, then we can keep moving forward and we can keep trying new things. And we have that ability to be able to grow out of that person that we were before, because now nobody knows us.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at it through that lens of, oh, I have to start all over, looking at it the lens of, I get to start all over. And not reinventing myself in a way that I'm like a completely different fake person, but now I'm allowed to grow again. So, and I don't think, again, society means to put those restrictions on us, but it just inadvertently happens because we're humans and we're people. And once you get to know somebody, you kind of have these preconceived notions of who they are, and you put them in a box on accident.
Right.
And then it's hard for them to come out of that box. And so moving boxes, we are just moving boxes, and we get to come out of those moving boxes a new person.
That's great. That is so cute. That's awesome.
Like we mentioned, like right off the bat today, like we're already somewhat placed in this box just as a military spouse. But, we need to embrace that opportunity that we can be so much more than that. And we keep saying just, and we need to find like a new way to say that, like not just to stay
we need
mom,
a
or not just not just a military spouse. Like there's so much more to all of those things, so we need to try to get ourselves out of those boxes and embrace what is in front of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's real important also, which I think we've talked about in a previous conversation, the company you keep. Because I know, unfortunately, with military spouses, when you put us in this box, there's a lot of negativity that's bred in that box because we're hurt. We're hurt that people limit us, and we're hurt that people look at us in a way that feels disrespectful, and we're hurt that we don't always, it's not that we want the recognition for what we do. It's just that we want to be valued as well. And so there's been, several times where I've been around military spouses who, it becomes a very negative circle of, well, my husband gets to work and my husband gets to, go be away from home, and I just have to sit here all day with the kids, and I'm just exhausted, and I just want a coffee, and I just want to go to Target. And you kind of get in these circles sometimes where it just feels like you're a victim. And I think we have to remember that even though not all of us have chosen this life of a military spouse, that we can't hold the flag of victim and victor at the same time, right? And so if you want your life to be different, then you have to make your life different. You have to, again, readjust that thinking of, my husband's going to work, my husband's providing for me, and when he comes home from work, it's okay for me to ask him, can I run to Target for an hour? Can I go to the gym for an hour? Can I go have some time to myself and sit in a parking lot and cry for an hour? Just being okay asking for that help, because sometimes we just need it. And just realizing that the company that you surround yourself with, if they're bringing you down quicker than you can bring them up, that it's not a good relationship for you to be in. And it's okay to have to walk away from those relationships. And again, that's where being a military spouse can be a blessing, because there's constantly people ebbing and flowing in and out of your life, which is a very sad thing because we make these relationships that are very painful to lose. But it also helps sometimes with that awkward conversation where, you realize this person's bringing you down and you want to bring some distance in that relationship and you don't quite know how. And then it's like, oh, I got orders. So again, blessings in disguise.
Yeah,
It is great. I feel like a broken record how much I always say what this lifestyle has, provided us and done for us, physically and mentally. Just it is a blessing. I couldn't imagine. I literally cannot imagine living any other way and just being as happy and grateful as we are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. And I think I've mentioned it before. I mean, like, I love the, like, identifying who's in your corner, like who's part of your team and stuff like that. Like, who are you surrounding yourself with? And I just think that's huge. If you can identify, these people are maybe not encouraging so much,
Right.
Go ahead and give them that Heisman little, like, stiff
Right.
arm there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be like, all right, let's find something that's a little more encouraging to help you, like, live this lifestyle,
Right.
but
And you don't have to be ugly about it.
No.
It doesn't have to be an ugly high school drama conversation.
absolutely.
It can just be I'm busy. I can't go do that thing with you today,
Yeah.
and just creating that distance a little by little. And, and sometimes
and sometimes it's
requires-
not cutting them off completely either.
Right.
It might just be a little more of, like, identifying that you need to spend a little less time or creating boundaries,
exactly. Like, you
Yeah.
need to build yourself back up again before you surround yourself with this person who
Yeah.
accidentally is affecting your mental health. And
Yeah.
once you are able to, bring yourself up again, then go spend time with them. And then maybe you can be that light in their life
Yeah.
versus, them dimming your brightness.
Yeah.
So,
Very cool. Well, gosh, I think, man, I don't know. I don't know if I have any more questions or anything for you. We might be able to wrap it up. I know it's a little bit longer of our podcast, but it's been such a fun conversation.
Such a great perspective. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners today?
I think we wrapped it up pretty good. I think, just shifting your vantage point, finding your tribe, and just deciding that your mental health is important and, taking care of yourself. There should be no mom guilt involved.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
when you are happy and healthy, your family is happy and healthy.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
That's
Well,
great.
thank you so much for your perspective and insight on being an active duty, member and spouse to,
Yes, thank you so much for
being a
having
military
me.
spouse then, and just going from the mom zone to being more than, a mom, and just being able to share all that wisdom and advice is so beneficial to all of us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. It was so nice having you in. And again, this is Victoria.
And Michelle.
And this is Behind the Rinks. Thank you so much for listening.